Hello, queens and kings. My name is Michael AKA Vikter, and I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, and this is the 100-degree challenge. What is the 100-degree challenge? Well, it is basically a peer review of the logic that takes you from 0 degrees to 100 degrees, or self-realization. And it's a parable on water changing state when it goes from 0 degrees freezing to 100 degrees boiling, where it goes from water to steam. So that's what this whole thing goes through. So I'm going to walk through this briefly because I did a more in-depth basically walkthrough. So this is going to be a sprint. So that's the challenge basics. So that the idea is to see what do we agree on as facts. And when I say fact, it's basically the truth, not my truth, not your truth, but a truth that is not a opinion. For instance, I use an example of sweet tea. Some could say sweet tea is too sweet. Some could say it's not sweet enough. Some like it, some don't like it, but sweet tea exists. So let's see if we can agree on these things existing. So at 10 degrees, intelligence exists. And intelligence is basically something that we all experience. We all start from knowing a certain amount, and we grow in intelligence. 20 degrees, matter exists. Matter is everything that we interact with in the physical world. This is drawn on matter, and you're probably watching this on something that is made of matter. And a famous equation is E equals mc squared. So ask yourself how many E's are in that equation. So we're all manifestations of the same energy. Everything you see is manifestations of the same energy. It's only one E. So nature exists. What is nature? Nature is anything that is not man-made, right? So you can look outside and you can see nature exists, and you're part of nature as well. Life exists. Life is organic matter. Life is basically anything that eats, has reproduction, and lives, right? So life exists. Human beings exist. We're human beings. We definitely exist. And we're going to spend more time on the being side of ourselves. But do human beings exist? Do you agree? Now, not everyone is going to agree with everything, and I'm curious to see where you drop off and what areas you disagree with and how you disagree with them. So please leave a comment and let me know. This is all part of the peer review of this information, as a true scientist would. I don't limit where my search for truth is, like scientists do, to just things that can be measured. I look at the non-physical as well. And one of those examples is consciousness. Does consciousness exist? And it's called a hard problem for a reason. Some would argue that it doesn't. This is 60 degrees. So consciousness is the state of being aware and awake of one's surroundings. So we are conscious beings. So I would say consciousness exists. 70 degrees, lies exist. There's a reason that I put in here lies, and we can talk about that in more depth later, but a lie is an intentionally false statement. So if I know the truth and attempt to deceive you by not telling you that, or telling you something that is not true, then I'm lying. If I'm talking about something that I'm ignorant of, then that's not a lie. It's just something that you don't know about. All right? Death exists. So death is the end of life of an organic being, or organic, basically entity, if you will. So death exists. Now these are all things that you can personally experience, and the definitions that I've used when you look at the more in-depth version of this uses Google. Not saying Google is the be-all or end-all of truth, but if AI ever does come online, Google is a large repository of information that AI will probably use. And it's also something that we all can look at. It's free, so it's kind of a one central source to verify and bounce all of this stuff on. Now this is where a lot of people get caught up in this area here. Each one of these are rabbit holes, and the intent is to go from 0 degrees to 100 and take you on that quantum leap and then show you the rabbit holes that you went by to just open up the possibility. So just this in itself, watching this in itself, is opening up some brain cells in your mind to just say this is possible. I'm just putting a dot in your mind right here that's just saying this is a possibility. And it's more than a possibility because this is my life, and I've been studying this matrix for years and documenting that online. So these are things that we normally get caught up in, and these are rabbit holes. 82 degrees, faith and belief exists. So faith is having basically an acceptance, or a belief is an acceptance of something being true or not without having proof of yourself. And faith is basically believing that something is true and not having the evidence to prove it. And there's other definitions that we can go into in depth there. Religion exists. Religion is doctrine, or a set of doctrines that usually have to do with a belief in a supernatural being power. And 86 degrees, dogma exists. And dogma is basically when someone says this is incontrovertibly true, meaning you can't prove it wrong. But if you look at some of these roots of these words, like religion, the root of religion has to do with religare, which means to bind, so that's interesting. If you look at dogma, the root of that has to do with opinion. So it's interesting that the word that means something that's incontrovertibly true has in its root opinion. Now again, these are definitions that you can look at and research. And again, we're jumping over all these rabbit holes. So Some people will drop off here, and maybe you dropped off there, but we'll continue on. 88 degrees, spirit, soul exists. If you're a materialistic scientist, you will probably drop off here. You probably don't believe you have a spirit or a soul, but there's a lot of leading edge evidence that shows that consciousness is not generated in the brain, or the mind and the brain are different things, and that the soul exists. When you look at Google, it tells about the soul being the immaterial part of a person. So in Google's mind, the soul does exist. Now, these are all things that we're looking at on the physical side, and this is the non-physical side. So this is the outer journey, and this is the inner journey. So we're going to continue on. So 90 degrees, and you see the graduations get smaller here. So I'm arguing that you are not your senses. So sight, smell, touch, hearing, and taste are all served to you and how you experience this reality, but they are not you. And you have to ask yourself the question, can you have and be something at the same time? Can you have a car and be a car at the same time? So you are not your senses. You are not your body. Your body is basically the vehicle that you experience this reality through, your avatar, but are you your body? Let's say you're driving your body. Your consciousness is driving your body, just like you drive a car. Can you be and have a car at the same time? You are not your thoughts. Your thoughts come and go, but you still remain. You observe your thoughts. You are not your brain. Your brain is almost like the CPU of your avatar, if you will. And I use this parable. If you think about the internet, whether you're on an Apple phone or a Google phone or whatever laptop or PC you're using, the internet is something that's served through that PC. The PC is not the internet. So imagine that you are the internet and you're interacting with everybody else through these PCs, the avatars that we call bodies. You are not your feelings. Your feelings come and go, but you still remain. Even some of the toughest feelings that you may identify with are not you. So if you are not your senses, your body, your thoughts, your brain, or your feelings, who are you? And this is all internal stuff that no one can measure, and you have to do your own work. This is the journey. This is the part. This is the hard work right here. But again, we're just opening up the possibility. We're just making this dot bigger and bigger to where you see that it is indeed a possibility, and you do your own research and you do your own digging. It's just like me telling you, hey, underneath you, exactly 100 feet underneath you is gold. Now, you either dig and find it for yourself and you see that it is true, or you don't. The work is up to you. You can't dig 50 feet and say it isn't here. It's 100 feet below you, just like 100 degrees. It makes water become steam. So I'm arguing that you are the I am. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. That's what we are. This matrix is basically us manifesting a spiritual world into a physical world. And again, you can look at it from cutting edge science. If you want to look at the field that permeates everything, they're calling it the Higgs field or whatever. But scientists is only touching on things that they can measure. There's a part of you that's immeasurable. And that's what I'm saying that you are, the I am, a spiritual being having a human experience. And it's called by many names. I just use I am because we use that in speech, but we don't realize that that is something else. So you're experiencing the presence of an ego, but you are not your ego. You're more than just what you see physically. Now, the reason why I think this is so important because it gives us a different perspective on how to look at the problems of the world. One of the things Einstein said is that you can't solve a problem with the same consciousness that created it. So we're looking at this from a higher level of consciousness to look back at all the things all the ills that are happening on this planet, and we're going to solve it from that standpoint. So this is the peer review. This is what I'm going to be showing to everyone and having a conversation. And this allows us to have a conversation from a different perspective and look at these things and not get caught up in these rabbit holes. You can go to viktorbang.com/100, or you can email me at vic@viktorbang.com, and we'll have this conversation. You want to see this? This is part of the Trueman Show. This is me from a spiritual being having a human experience, turning the camera on you guys, and I'm talking about you in general, and just showing you that there's a different perspective to live this life, and I'm one of those guys, and it is possible. And first of all, you have to see that it's possible and believe that it's possible. Yeah, you have to have some belief because belief allows you to take actions. Alrighty, so that's where we are. I appreciate you guys listening up to this point, and we'll keep it moving. Thank you.